I read you quoted.
You don't believe in the boogeyman?
I believe in Michael Myers, a deranged serial killer, but the boogeyman, no.
Well, you should.
Making audiences laugh with comedy, making audiences feel tension with thrilling action. That's all fairly simple and straightforward. But a whole other filmmaking challenge, perhaps the most difficult one of all, is making the audience feel true, genuine fear. While it might be just as thrilling to see Tom Cruise climbing things and driving motorcycles today as it was 2 decades ago, the same doesn't really apply to films in the horror genre. With horror and scares, moviegoers have learned to tolerate more and more. The thing that was scary yesterday isn't necessarily scary anymore. The latest horror franchise of the olden days to try its luck with modern audiences is 2018's Halloween. And the response overall was pretty good. Nothing special, but good. Unlike was the case with Freddy and Jason, Michael Myers did seem to have a positive impact on a lot of filmgoers of today. That said, the question still remains: was the movie scary? Whether or not the new Halloween is a scary film, that's up to you. Fear is always very subjective, so I'm not gonna try to tell you anything different. But what I would argue is that this film wasn't as scary as it could have been, because of 2 choices made by the filmmakers regarding the character of Michael Myers. 2 simple choices that, at least in my eyes, had massive consequences. Watching through Halloween, I knew these 2 choices were what this video was going to be about. But then, toward the end, the movie did something that turned everything upside down. It introduced a twist that fixes the negative consequences of both choices, or would have fixed. See, this twist is only introduced, never capitalized on. The movie sets the twist up, but then tosses it aside without ever using it. And this, fellas and fellarettes, is the reason we are here today. We're going to be taking a closer glance at 2018's Halloween and the 2 filmmaking choices that made it quite a bit less scary than it could have been. And finally, we'll investigate the unused twist in order to see how it would have fixed the consequences of the 2 choices and made this movie a lot scarier. You know, at least from my point of view. If you've seen my earlier video about A Quiet Place, then maybe you saw this coming. In the original 1978 Halloween, Michael Myers very much is created with a sense of inhumanity and supernatural. He is said to be human by other characters, yes, but his actions are always telling a different story. He cannot be killed, he cannot be stopped, much like Freddy or Jason or Arnold. It's this inhuman supernatural unstoppability that makes him scary. And the one thing that symbolizes all of it is his mask. Even though Michael Myers is established as human, you can never visually see him as such, not until the very end when the mask for a brief moment comes off. The new version of Halloween, on the other hand, makes a choice that's entirely inverted. Right at the start, it visually introduces Michael Myers as human. We see him at the hospital, we see him at the gas station. The film does try to hide exact facial details, but it can't hide the information that the audience now knows. Michael Myers isn't supernatural or somehow unstoppable. He's a balding, graying old man. And if the audience already sees and knows that, it in a way defeats the purpose of having a mask at all. What's the point of using a mask to upkeep mystery when there's no more mystery to keep up? To be clear, I'm not saying that old graying men can't be scary. They can. Look no further than, for example, Don't Breathe. The old man in that film is not only graying but also blind, yet he's developed to be very scary and intimidating. But the thing is, Michael Myers isn't really a character that gets any development. Michael Myers from inception has always been very simple and one-dimensional. He goes and he stabs and strangles. That's pretty much as deep as this character gets. And that ominously inhuman primal simplicity is what originally made him scary. But now that it is right away visually made so clear to the audience that Michael is just an old dude who looks like John Kramer from Saw, that sense of ominous inhumanity is gone. Later on, when Michael has the mask on and is going around town killing people, no matter how primal his behavior is now, it's not as effective because the audience has already seen what's behind the mask. Not some mysterious supernatural monster, not some unstoppable boogeyman. Instead, just a graying old man. A graying old man who is never developed into someone we should be afraid of. You could argue that the mask in this new movie isn't there to shroud Michael's identity, but instead just to symbolize who he is. Since Michael's face and humanity were already revealed in the original movie, there's no point in keeping them a secret any longer. And that's a fair argument. But then again, it only applies to those filmgoers who have actually seen the original 1978 movie. And even if every filmgoer in the world had already seen that scene revealing Michael's humanity, I still don't see why they would have to be reminded of it. The way this new movie shows tiny glimpses of old man Michael at the hospital, that's fine. But the gas station scene, that I think could have been toned down. Instead of so clearly showing old man Michael wrestling with the male journalist, just stay inside the stall with the woman and deliver the information through sound and obscured visuals. This way you can show what Michael can do without actually showing who he is. If you base the scariness of your movie on an old man, then you need to develop him into someone scary. But if you base the scariness of your movie on Michael Myers and never do any character development because he's Michael Myers, then you need to show him only as Michael Myers, not as old man Michael. As 2018's Halloween starts off, the film very directly sets up the relationship between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. It is foreshadowed very heavily that after all this time, these two characters have become obsessed with each other and that they are destined to collide. That when Michael breaks free, he will travel directly to Laurie to finish the job of killing her and now also her family. Above all else, that's what this movie is promised to be about. But then, Michael breaks free. Instead of fulfilling the premise of the movie and traveling to Laurie to finish her off, Michael becomes the worst possible type of villain any movie could ever have. He becomes a passive villain. Initially, Michael is very active when he goes to get back his mask, yes. But after that, nothing. He just aimlessly walks down the street like an idiot caveman and kills a bunch of nameless characters who play absolutely no part in the story. Without purpose, without any clear, active objective. As if, in his old age, he doesn't even remember that Laurie exists. You could say that that's the point, that this is who Michael is, an idiot Neanderthal who just kills people randomly. Maybe so, but if that's true, it's not very good. Not only is watching a villain kill off random people without any idea where it's going boring, it's also not scary. Why would the audience fear for the life of a character when they've never met that character before and thus have zero emotional investment in them? To be fair, maybe butchering random movie characters without any clear objective was effective in the previous century of horror filmmaking. Maybe. But today, it just isn't. I mean, the movie itself even mentions this, but for whatever reason fails to take its own advice.
I mean, that is scary to have a bunch of your friends get butchered by some random crazy person.
Is it though? Because all things considered, there's a lot worse stuff that's happening today. And like, I mean, what, a couple people getting killed by one guy with a knife is not that big of a deal. I'm just saying, like, by today's standards.
Just shut the fuck up, Dave. Shut up.
Then again, even with the original 1970s Halloween, you can't really say that Michael is a passive villain who does things randomly. He does initially choose Laurie as his victim on random, yes, but after that choice, the movie then becomes the story of Michael trying to achieve his goal of murdering Laurie and everyone around her. As in, there's a clear villain objective and an overall sense of where the plot is going, which is a lot more interesting to watch than a movie where the villain kills off characters we know just because he out of pure coincidence ends up in that one house they are in. Michael and Laurie do finally collide at the very end of the new movie. But even then, it's not because Michael is actively pursuing her and her family. It's because he is driven over to her by another character. Plus, even when Michael is trying to kill Laurie, it still doesn't seem like he has any clue as to who she really is. At least not until she pulls off that same disappearing act he did years ago. And maybe this was all done on purpose. Maybe Michael just doesn't care. Maybe he just forgot. That would explain why he showed zero interest in Laurie and the cop when they met earlier in the movie. Maybe the Michael in this new movie isn't meant to be Michael Myers as much as he is meant to be Old Man Michael. Or maybe he just is that much of an idiot Neanderthal. I don't know. Regardless, if you want to make the choice of making your horror villain an idiot, fine. But that's no excuse to make them passive. Jason is an idiot, but he has a clear active goal. Freddy is an idiot, but he has a clear active goal. The anaconda in Anaconda is an anaconda, but it still has a clear active goal. And so, whether your movie features Michael Myers or Old Man Michael, he should have a clear active goal as well. Is that active goal killing people or eating people doesn't matter, as long as it's there. The two filmmaking choices we've talked about, they were big problems for me. Maybe they weren't a problem for you, but they were for me. And because of that, I was starting to lose all interest in this movie. Until, out of nowhere, the movie concludes Act 2 with a twist that turns the entire thing upside down. A twist that is not only one of the greatest movie twists I've seen in a long while, but also one that fixes both of the problems. The movie kills off Old Man Michael and replaces him with another character.
Get away from the body. Stand back.
I'm not gonna say it again. Step away from the suspect. Step away. So, this is what it feels like.
The shot where the doctor rises into view with the mask on, that without a doubt is my favorite shot in this film. Because at this moment, I genuinely thought that 2018's Halloween had made a highly bold move of killing off Old Man Michael from the first movie and making another character take his place as the new Michael Myers. Obviously, if you've seen the movie, you know that this twist turns out to be not real. It was set up, but never capitalized on. A couple minutes later, Michael wakes up and we're right back where we started. But looking back at this moment, it does make me wish that the twist was real. And I do think that if only done properly, the twist would have made this film better and scarier. Just hear me out, please. Firstly, the twist fixes the issue of Old Man Michael being a graying old man. Since we now see that Michael Myers isn't just one specific person, it reinstates the sense of the character's inhuman, supernatural immortality. True, we do see that now it's just another graying old man behind the mask, but that's not the point. The point of the twist isn't who's behind the mask. The point of the twist is that Michael Myers can be anyone. Michael Myers is not a person, but rather an idea or a metaphorical parasite that can spread from one mind to another. The real Michael Myers isn't the mortal human being behind the mask. The real Michael Myers is the mask. A bit similar to, for example, X-Men First Class, where Magneto kills off Kevin Bacon and takes his helmet to become the new leader of the evil mutants.
If you're in there, I'd like you to know that I agree with every word you said.
You are my creator.
Secondly, the twist fixes the problem of Michael Myers being a passive villain without a clear objective. Even though Old Man Michael maybe is an idiot Neanderthal who has forgotten all about Laurie and has no real goal, his replacement wouldn't be like that. I'm not saying the replacement should be the doctor, but it should be someone who shares his obsession with Michael Myers. Someone who has studied the relationship between Michael and Laurie Strode for a long time. Someone who, upon seeing that Old Man Michael doesn't actually care about Laurie, takes his place as the new Michael Myers to kill her, just like Michael Myers is meant to.
Ready for what?
A reunion. Michael's pursuit of Laurie Strode.
Michael, I see why you are who you are. The sensation is obvious. The thrill is exhilarating.
I understand that not everyone would enjoy this kind of twist where another character comes in and assumes the identity of the main villain. But in my eyes, it would reinvigorate the franchise quite a bit and in the process set it apart from the original. It worked with Magneto in X-Men First Class, it worked with the Joker in Batman Beyond. True, the twist could be done a bit better. Maybe instead of taking place at the end, it takes place at the middle to increase stakes for the second half. Maybe instead of it being the doctor, it's someone else. Maybe it's another mental patient, maybe it's one of the journalists. Instead of having two journalists who get killed off right away, maybe the movie has just one journalist who has spent decades of his life researching Michael Myers and his relationship with Laurie Strode. And now he's become so obsessed and consumed by the idea of Michael Myers that his mind has been taken over, like was the case with the doctor. And since Old Man Michael turns out to be useless, the journalist ultimately ends up killing him and becomes the new Michael Myers in order to finish off Laurie Strode like he's supposed to. At the end, the movie would still play out the exact same way. Laurie faces off with Michael Myers one last time to defend her family. But now we get a Michael Myers who is more than just one mortal old man and who actually actively pursues Laurie and her family. It's not the same guy behind the mask as before, but that doesn't matter. Because again, the real Michael Myers isn't the human behind the mask. The real Michael Myers is the unkillable, unstoppable idea that the mask represents. From my point of view, at least.
Hey, isn't that Devon Graham?
I don't think so.
Hey, jerk!